Hello, it's Amy. I'm here with the extra material in the back of the Journal of Emily Shore. We finished the journal a couple of days ago, but the editors have included some of Emily's own works at the back of the book in an appendix. So today we are reading a work titled The Lady and the Sage, which is written by Emily Shore herself at the age of 15 and a half. So here it is. It happened that one calm and lovely evening in the summer of 1835, I was seated alone beneath an aged and spreading lime tree near the entrance of Whitewood, which is separated from my home by a single meadow. What was the subject of my meditations, it boot not to tell, but I was suddenly startled from them by the sight of a venerable figure arrayed in a Grecian tunic, who slowly advanced from among the thickets, and looked about him with wondering eyes. I fixed mine on him with equal wonder. I thought I beheld one of the sages of ancient Greece. If so, he must have arisen from the dead and revisited the earth in a different quarter from that in which he was born. What a wonder of wonders, if this was the case! I longed to satisfy myself, rose, and advanced just a few steps. The sage beheld me and gazed at me fixedly, saluted me by bending forward and stroking his long beard. I returned his salutation with a curtsy and curiously examined his countenance. It was a most pleasing one. The mixture of mildness, intelligence, simplicity, and sober cheerfulness gave it a delightful expression. I longed earnestly to know his name. "Lady," he asked at length, "what is the name of this land that I am in?" "It is England, sir," I answered. "England," repeated the sage with a puzzled countenance. "I know not that country by name. And what is the language that I speak? For I perceive that thou speakest the same." "English, sir. Everything round you is English," I replied. "And whence do you come, sir?" "From the other world, lady. But it behooves thee not to ask me respecting those things which I have seen there, for it is not permitted me to tell you thee. And indeed, so to speak, I already forget them." "It must be Herodotus," I exclaimed with a sudden illumination. "I indeed am a Greek by the name Herodotus. But how didst thou know my name?" "You spoke in the manner in which you write." "Herodotus, what then hast thou read my writings, lady?" "Lady, I have not read them though, but I am engaged in reading them." Herodotus. "But tell me, lady, for I understand not all these things, art thou a Greek? For my books are written in the Greek tongue." Lady. And we've switched from a narrative to more of a dialogue where we have Lady and Herodotus beginning each line in the manner in which you might see a play written out. "Lady, no, I am only an English girl. I never was in Greece, and I never saw a Greek. But I am learning the Greek language. We value Greek books greatly." Herodotus. "I do indeed marvel at these things. I know not where England is. Is it a country of the barbarians?" Lady. "Oh no, Herodotus, you make a great mistake. It is true you Greeks would call us barbarians, but we are a far more learned and civilized nation than you were." Herodotus. "Thou tellest me indeed wonderful things, but thou easily persuadest me, for I perceive that thou knowest all the things that pertain to my countrymen, albeit we ourselves do not know the things which pertain to you. I believe, therefore, that this is not a barbarous people. But where is England, I pray?" Lady, smiling. "I can tell you that sounds a very strange question in the ears of an English person. England is universally allowed to be the greatest and most powerful kingdom or country throughout the world. Why, Herodotus, the whole of Attica is not equal to a 70th part of this island we are on, which is only a small part of the empire." Herodotus. "I marvel." Lady. "But before I tell you any more, pray, good Herodotus, tell me how you came here and why you speak English." Herodotus. "I have said to thee that it is not permitted me to tell thee all these things. I may, however, tell thee so much as this, that it is granted to me for a time, to revisit the earth, and that to hear and to see the changes that have happened since my death, that it is decreed that I should speak, even as it were naturally, the tongue of that people in whose country I should chance to awake, and that I should forget all those things that have happened to me since I died in the city of Thurii. Lady, thank you, Herodotus, for your information. Let me tell you, you are lucky to have awoken England. Next to Greek, the English language is the finest in the world. The English excel every other people in art and literature, and besides possess the literature of all other nations who have any. So we are seeing British colonialism in fine, and I use fine for fine in, air quotes, ironically. We are seeing British colonialism and the British-centric perspective of the world in fine form here. Certainly it was a perspective that many of the people in England in Emily's time would have held. They did believe that they were the superior nation, and that worldview held for many, many decades. But we are seeing Emily sort of putting forward this view to Herodotus, and I'm finding this quite interesting, that she would imagine, this ancient Greek writer coming back to life in her own modern day setting to speak to her, and the puzzling things that would have come to mind. Herodotus, I shall rejoice to know what those nations are. Lady, oh, it would take an age to tell you. All the nations of Europe, for instance. To begin with Greece, your own country. Oh no, I forgot you were born in Asia Minor. Herodotus, I know not where that place is. And farther, I esteem Greece to be my own country. For though I was not born in Greece itself, I am a Greek by birth, and my native place is Halicarnassus. Lady, true, you were a Dorian, but since your time we call all that great peninsula, including all the Dorian, Ionian, and Aeolian colonies, and all the countries of Phrygia, Mysia, Cappadocia, Asia Minor, or Lesser Asia. Herodotus, this seems to me a marvelous thing, for I have always called a small part of those regions Asia itself, which thou tellest me is now included in Lesser Asia. But I pray, how long is it since I died? Lady, it is, I think, it is now above 2,200 years. Herodotus, thou tellest me this, which to me indeed is not credible, for how in truth could all these changes have happened in less than 3,000 years? And I indeed think that they must needs have taken many more, at the least 10,000. Lady, Herodotus, you have many things to learn. Do you know the world has not even lasted above 6,000 years? Herodotus, to me indeed neither is this altogether probable, for I cannot easily perceive how the operations of the river Nile could be completed in less than 10,000 years, as has been written indeed in my history. Lady, I remember that very well, and short work indeed you made of 10 or 20,000 years. Herodotus, in truth I begin to think that I may be mistaken in some things, though nevertheless I seem to myself to know almost all that was known in my time. Lady, very likely, and now you shall hear a few of the things that are known now. First, the shape of the earth is globular. Herodotus, thou art laughing at me, lady. Lady, upon my word I am not. Secondly, the sun does not move. Herodotus, indeed, lady, I have seen it rise and set almost every day of my life. Lady, laughing, almost. Excuse me, sir, but do you suppose any day has passed without its rising or setting? Herodotus, no, truly, lady, but I myself at least have not seen it every day. For sometimes I have been yet sleeping when it has risen, and sometimes when it set I was writing my history, or beholding some other thing. Lady, well, I know you love accuracy of language. However, everybody now knows that it is the earth which moves daily on its own axis, and yearly round the sun, and not the sun that has a daily and yearly motion. Herodotus with sudden illumination. Beautiful! A marvelous discovery indeed. And to me, after thinking of it, it does not indeed seem improbable, but the sun is so very small. Lady. Why, that is the very point. The sun is found to be more than 1,000,000 of times as big as the earth, and moreover it is 95,000,000 of miles distant from us. Herodotus. Now indeed thou makest me marvel. Lady. Ah, I knew I should surprise you. Well, I leave the skies and descend to terrestrial matters. Every part of the world is now known except just the poles, and we know, I should think, 12 times as much of it as you did. Why, the world seems excessively small to us. England, for example, you knew nothing about, which I should think must be, and there's a blank there, miles from Attica. And there are places more than 12,000 miles from the latter country. There are vast oceans, too, to which the largest seas you knew were not to be compared. The Euxine Sea, for example, is a mere nothing to the Atlantic Ocean. Herodotus. In truth, I did not think that any men but barbarians lived so far off from Greece. I am not easily persuaded of all the things thou hast told me. But I like well that thou shouldst also say of what sort are the things that have befallen the Greeks since my death, and what great actions you have done. Lady. You have set me a long task. I will, however, tell you as shortly as possible. First, however, do you remember a youth called Thucydides? Herodotus. I do indeed remember, but he did not escape my notice when he wept while I read my history at the Olympian Games. Lady. Well, he is the next great historian after you, and has written the history of the Peloponnesian War, which began about the time of your death, and ended in the taking of Athens by the Lacedaemonians. I shall have no time to go through all the great and little wars which desolated Greece, nor how the power of Lacedaemon was broken by Epaminondas and the Theban, nor how Athens declined in power also. But it will surprise you to hear how Greece was in fact, though not nominally, subjected to the control of Philip, king of Macedonia, a most able, politic, ambitious prince, whose talents and energy raised his country from barbarism to civilization. Herodotus. And when did this happen, lady? Lady, about, let me see. Philip died in 336 BC. Why, it happened about 70 years after your death. But Philip was suddenly cut off by assassination. Then came his son, Alexander, a most wondrous man and renowned conqueror. He reigned about 12 years, in which time he conquered all the known world as far as India, and finally fixed himself at Babylon, which you admire so much. By the way, Herodotus, were you ever at Babylon? Herodotus. Thou sayest truly, for I was there almost 14 months, and I admired the city greatly, even more than Nineveh. Lady, then you have seen Nineveh too. Herodotus. I have indeed, and though when I saw it had greatly fallen from its glory, it was yet a very magnificent city. Lady. I must ask you one more question. Do you know anything of Herodotus besides what you have written of it now and then in your history? Herodotus. I have indeed seen Herodotus, for I have passed through it once in my journey through Syria. For it is a great city of the Palestinian Syrians. Lady. Indeed, that's what I want to know, not less than Sardis, as you write. Herodotus. I did in truth so write, and so I also think. But the people, as I think, are a barbarous people, yet they have buildings worthy of admiration, and one especially little indeed, but fair and richly decorated, which was the temple of their deity. Lady. Interesting, but you are only speaking of a small part of the Palestinians. Herodotus. Yes, in sooth, they are but a small part, those of whom Herodotus is the capital. Neither do they mingle with other nations, but are proud and high-minded, and esteem themselves above all others. Lady. And their name? Herodotus. They have indeed many names, but are called chiefly after their forefather, Jacobus, and after a certain Judaeus, who, as is said by them, was the fourth son of that Jacobus. Lady. So you have actually seen the Jews. I am quite delighted. Pray, tell me a little more about them. Herodotus. I am not able to tell thee much, But so much as this I can say, that they are a devout people and exceedingly attached to their religion, saying that all other religions are false, and that there are no gods but theirs, and they worship indeed but one God, but they have no image or likeness of him, unless indeed there is one in the inner recess of their temple, into which it is not permitted to a stranger to go. Lady, did you see any of their sacred books? Herodotus, truly I did, and I read a part of them, wherein are related marvellous histories of themselves, which to me indeed are not credible. And especially they relate the destruction of the army of Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, which, as I think, having heard it from the Egyptians, was not destroyed, but put to flight, the leather of their army being eaten by mice. Lady, nevertheless, every syllable related in their sacred books is true. Moreover, it is true that their God is the only God, and is he whom all Europe adores. End of fragment. So that's a fun little experimental narrative there. Obviously, we see her worldview coming through there, her views on religion, and her views on her pride at being English at that point in time. So we have that, and then what we have left here are extracts from her poems written between 1833 and 1838. So we will make a separate video for the poetry extracts.